believe it or not, calling on help is not a norm, and it needs to be. And I don't know how to get people to get to a place where they feel that. And for some people, it's too much. They don't want to face where they are in their lives, in their businesses, in their workspaces, in their relationships, their children. They don't want to be honest about that yet. It's too much. And some of it is because they haven't faced things that they didn't address as children. I mean, many of us are grown-ups with children inside that need to be nurtured and loved because a lot has not been addressed.
Right.
And so those children start screaming in ways that look like grown adults throwing tantrums.
Welcome to another episode of Strong Place by Mental Health America, Central Carolinas. I am Io Johnson, Executive Director, and today with me I have my most accomplished guest, Ms. LaPronda Spann. LaPronda is the principal of Lane Consulting, LLC, an award-winning certified minority, disadvantaged, and small business enterprise that specializes in diversity certification support, public outreach and engagement, supplier growth planning, program development, and government contracting. Under her leadership, the firm has secured more than $3.5 million in grants and contracts for its company and clients. Since 2017, LaPronda has been teaching small, diverse firms how to pursue and secure land premium contracts to grow, scale, and sustain their companies long-term. In 2020, LaPronda established Fast Track to Contracts, a government contracting boot camp, and will launch the course online for business owners across the country in summer 2024. The company has been recognized by the New York Times as one of the top 100 Black-owned businesses to watch in the U.S. Okay. Other noteworthy achievements include the Charlotte Business Journal's Women in Business Achievement Award, the Minority Business Enterprise of the Year by the City of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, as well as features on local and regional news shows for business success and small business advocacy. Wow, she has done so much, and I am going to let her tell you a little bit more about herself, but I want to welcome LaPronda to Strong Place.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. You have quite the impressive resume, and so we have known each other for a little over a year. We did some work together with a mutual friend a little over a year ago, yes. And then I hadn't seen you in a while, and so I'm just so happy to reconnect and get to hear more about your story today. And I know that you're going to be a special treat for our viewers. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Your bio talks a lot about your business successes and things that you've done. Tell us a little bit about you personally and share with us your personal mental health story.
Sure. So originally, I'm from Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. I came to Charlotte, North Carolina by way of Johnson C. Smith University, so go Golden Bulls. And I decided to make this my home because the city started growing right when I got here. And so everything that we see today has been a long time coming, but we saw it coming very early on.
Okay.
As a result of that, I started my career in healthcare, and that's a big theme in my family background. My mother's a teacher by trade, and she taught health education. I ended up in public health, so I'm a public health professional by trade. But I always knew I wanted to work for myself. A product of a single parent, that is not my story. I wasn't a part of the statistics that everybody says you have to be, and you'll never get out of poverty and all the stories that you hear. That's not true. And so I'm a product of the success that can happen when you just work hard and pursue your goals. So as a result of that, I worked in public health, and I was a federal program manager for healthcare systems for a long time. But at some point, I knew I did not want to work for myself. For some reason, corporate America did not work for me. And at some point, climbing that corporate ladder is a slippery slope, and that can impact your mental health. Because some of that will have you believing that you're not as good as you really are. And that's not true. And I know there are many people out here who suffer from that. They believe, based on performance evaluations and what they are asked to do every day, that they may not be good enough, and that's not true. And so I made the decision over the age of 40 to bet on myself. And I jumped into business full time. I was side hustling it for about 5 years before I made the decision to jump full time. And that was October 5th, 2012. I did it as a single parent with a 9-year-old, which is scary.
That is.
But I had started to see some success with my clients and the work that I was doing. And I was getting quite a bit of traction in that space. And so at that time, I also had a boss. And so I love how Ayanna Van Zant says, she says, I had a beautiful angel that was cleverly disguised as the horrible boss. And she was the catalyst that kind of pushed me to make the decision to jump into entrepreneurship full time. And so I took the leap, and I have not looked back since 2012.
2012. So you're going on 12 years.
Yeah.
And I definitely know that struggle, because it ebbs and flows in entrepreneurship and business. Owning your own business definitely has its ups and downs. It has great rewards.
Yes.
But those downs can be down.
They can.
Has it been a roller coaster ride, or has it just been a straight trajectory with a couple of bumps here and there?
Well, I would love to meet the person that said they had a straight trajectory to success. That was not my story. I mean, the first 2 years were really hard, and it will have you doubting everything that you do. Like, oh my God, did I make the right decision to jump? So what I tease my new entrepreneurs about is, if you've been in this for less than 6 months, you're probably thinking you made the worst decision in your life. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to go bankrupt. We're going to be poor. They're going to kick us out of the house, all the things. But at some point you made the decision, either I'm going to move forward and make this thing work, or I'm going to keep looking back and never see the success that you possibly could see if you bet on yourself.
Right.
And so I made that decision, and I didn't look back. The first 2 years were really hard. But right at the 2.5-year mark, I had a guy that I met with by accident. He was referred to me, and he told me, he said, how long have you been in business? And I said, about 2.5 years. And he said, give it 3. He said, you'll see the change. And at the 2.5 mark, I hit 6 figures, and I never looked back after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
So again, you have your doubts, you have your challenges. You're like, oh my God, if this payment doesn't come in from the client, oh my God, well, we won't have a cell phone. The lights are going to go out, all the things. I mean, nobody likes to talk about that part of it. And then on top of that, as a single parent, you have a child to take care of.
Right.
That's a challenge. And so luckily I had faith in myself, and I had great relationships with people who believed in me, wanted to support me, sent referrals my way all the time, and gave me opportunities to continue to make the money to stay in it long enough to see the success. And so one of the challenges I have my clients face is build the relationships, because the relationships will take you where money sometimes cannot.
Right. Absolutely.
Other than that, you're going to think that you're not as great as you are, and you really are. It just requires that you have to have yourself surrounded with people that can help you.
Do you think being a single parent while going through that gave you more purpose and more push, or do you think it added to the stress of maybe I should just go back and get a job, or was it maybe sometimes a little bit of both?
I think for me, I got some kind of crazy faith that I can see it even if I don't see it.
Right. Okay.
And in entrepreneurship, you have to see it while you don't see it. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be stressed in that process. But you're still betting on you. And I made the decision to be honest about where I was. So if I absolutely had to ask for some help, I would. But I also knew that I had the ability to do what I needed to do to stay successful. It was scary, but children don't know the difference. They know that they're loved, they're fed, the water's on, the lights are on, you take them to school, you show up for the award ceremony. So they a lot of times don't know the difference. And with my daughter, I made sure not to express a lot of that to her. Because I wanted her to live the life that I had envisioned. However, I did reach out for help to others who would help me. And it wasn't that I was asking them for money, but I was sitting down, meeting with them, asking them for referrals, opportunities. And I would walk into some offices and say, I wanted to be your superstar. They knew I was stressed, but I would say, I want to be your superstar. And when they gave me the opportunity, I would also ask what I could do for them. And they, in turn, gave me opportunity, and I would do whatever they asked. And they continue to support me to this day. So I would say it's not easy.
Right.
It's really, really stressful. But again, I saw the turnaround.
I know that you help small businesses and become certified. What are some of what's the common thread that you find when you work with, especially small business owners? Do you find that the stress begins to weigh on them, or like what do you see as the common thread?
My reputation is about being honest in this business, and I'm here to help people. So we can call it certification. I can help them with a ton of things, but at the end of the day, what people need is support. And so I am a support and a work wife to a lot of people, a work partner to a lot of people. And I give them the opportunity to be honest about where they are so that they can help me. And I do that by outing myself about the things I've been challenged with so that they know they're not alone. We work by ourselves. We're challenged with finding the next contract, the next opportunity. Some of us have employees, and that's stressful in and of itself. And so they need someone to lean on. So even in the process of helping them get certified to open up more premium opportunities for them, I get to have the conversation that many won't have with others outside of work or this business to really express what they need. Because sometimes it's just a phone call to a connection that I may have that can make all the difference. Or sometimes it's them knowing about a resource that's available to them. During the pandemic, I saw it the greatest because I was getting the phone calls about people drowning because everybody got shut down.
Right.
And so what do you do when you can't work and you can't generate revenue and you don't know when the next check is going to come in because everything has gotten shut down? And so I had the opportunity at that time to explore and expose them to the grants that were available, the loans that were available. And I was able to assist them through that paperwork to keep them operational and sustain them through the pandemic. The pandemic was stressful. And I know many of us feel like we're on the other side of things and it's normal again. But there was nothing normal about the pandemic. And nobody talks about the PTSD that many of us still have as a result of the pandemic.
Yes.
Many of us still have some of that. So we're dealing a new normal, but the pandemic was really impactful for a lot of us.
Right.
And we're learning how to do life new and different. But we can't ignore the fact that it happened and that it had grave and some significant impact on us.
I think one of the other things that the pandemic did was it increased a lot of the cases of diagnosed mental health.
Yes.
I think prior to that, it was easy to hide and to not talk about it. Absolutely. But when I think as we were all kind of like sequestered to our homes, and the only way for us to keep connected was through social media or different means, I think it did allow people to start talking about their mental health more because people started going online and talking about being lonely. A lot of relationships didn't make it through the pandemic. And then to your point, a lot of businesses didn't make it.
That's right.
What do you say to those that are in business now? They've kind of made it. Some people birthed businesses in the pandemic.
They did.
But now that we're kind of like supposed to be post-pandemic, what would you say to them in order to stay focused and to keep their minds right, and also to prepare for other pandemic-like situations? Because crises do come most of the time of no fault of our own as business owners. What do you say to them to help them prepare for that possible downturn again?
The pandemic was a blessing and a curse because the blessing was many of us got to rest because I promise you, I didn't know how tired I was because I had run around for so much and we thought that was the normal way to do business is you're constantly going and you never sit still.
Yeah.
And because of that, many of us go our separate ways from the house and then we come back, we go to bed and we start all over again. And so we really weren't connected. And so at some point you had to sit still long enough to face the person that you were living with, the children that you had in the house. And God bless the parents who had to homeschool while also trying to work through the computer. And so it made us face a lot of things. It also forced many of us to change a lot of how we were doing life and how we were doing business. Do I want my business to do this all the time? Do I want to be gone 12 and 14 hours a day? Or is there a new and better way? Can I pivot and make a lot of my work virtual? That way I do get to spend time with my husband and my children or my wife or whatever. So that was one of the good things that came out of it. I laugh because I used to tell people it felt like The pandemic sat us all down and we got put on punishment and we didn't know why.
Right.
Like, what?
Time out.
Time
Out, right.
And so I would get in my car every day and go get a donut and coffee just to have something that felt normal during that time frame. And because Walmart became the club, because the grocery stores were the only places you could really go to connect, you went into the grocery store. And so I cooked a lot and gained a whole lot of weight. So that was one of the things that came out of it, because I don't know if I always was there to cook and to explore and create, even through food. That was one of the things. For the business owners that are out there who are out of the pandemic, and some of them may still have challenges, many of them separated with partners and wives and husbands during that time. The children, my child was one who did not get to have a normal graduation. So she had to walk across the stage from my car and get back in the car. And the way we clapped for them was to blow the horn.
Oh.
Other kids graduated just by seeing their picture on the screen.
Right.
That took a lot from them.
Right.
And what's interesting is most of those kids are the same ones that was born during 9/11. Many of us don't think about that. So something about this generation that they have feeling trauma coming in the world and then graduating from, one of the milestones in their lives. My daughter is still mad that she didn't have a prom, but many of us are faced with that. Our children we don't even check in with them to see how they're doing. We just all went through the pandemic as if it was okay. It wasn't okay, and we need to say it's not okay. I think therapy became a little more normal during the pandemic, but in many communities, it's still taboo. I just give my clients the permission to be honest about where they are. And if I can help them in any kind of way, then I will. And I think that has carried me through the pandemic and beyond. For those who need assistance, of course, there are many of us who are willing to help. But there are also many resources. Charlotte is rich with a lot of resources, and many communities across the country have resources that are available to them to help small businesses grow. And so I advise many people to tap into resources. I also advise them to check in on their mental health. If they're not feeling well, why do we keep saying, I'm fine?
Right.
Well, we're not. We're not fine. I'm not okay. If I don't want to do something, give yourself permission to say no. No, not today. Because it's preserving your own mental health. I do a much better job now of, if I don't want to do something, I say no. Or I'll say, let me think about it. I need to see what the temperature will be on that day.
Right.
Because we don't know how we're going to feel.
Do you think we're going backwards to pre-pandemic masking and faking that we're okay?
I think so. And then there's so much more piled on top of it. I mean, we got politics that's just kind of insane right now that we are not supposed to talk about. And so, you have that along with schools trying to get kids back to par in terms of their education and success and progress that they're making. Work is demanding, so there seems to be less jobs. And so as they are reducing the workforce, many people in these jobs are doing 3 people's jobs. How do you challenge that and not fear that you're going to lose your job too if you're not running your own business?
Right.
And then for businesses, when many of these corporations and government agencies are reducing, they're reducing in a lot of areas where contracts are not being, given to many of us anymore. And so how do you make changes and challenges? And so I suggest that people find ways to always pivot, have alternatives, because we always have been great at being resourceful.
Right.
And we're entrepreneurs at heart. I mean, we come from lineages of ancestors who were sharecroppers and knew how to fix any and everything, cook just about anything while taking care of other people's kids as well as their own. I mean, all of that's a part of our being, but I do think we need to express more how we feel in an honest place. And many people don't necessarily know that they have safe environments for them to feel physically and psychologically safe.
Right.
So one of the things we did during this process was started Mastermind again. For Mastermind, for me, it came out of a church that I was going to, and I had done it for years, and then we stopped. But it really was a way for many women of color to come together, have real honest conversations about where they are and what was going on with them, and then having the discussion about what does this mean? What's the lesson in it for you? How can we support you? We are letting you know we have your back.
Right.
So that you're not alone. And to give them the place to be honest and call on help when they need to. Believe it or not, calling on help is not a norm, and it needs to be. And I don't know how to get people to get to a place where they feel that. And for some people, it's too much. They don't want to face where they are in their lives, in their businesses, in their workspaces, in their relationships, their children. They don't want to be honest about that yet. It's too much. And some of it is because they haven't faced things that they didn't address as children. I mean, many of us are grown-ups with children inside that need to be nurtured and loved because a lot has not been addressed.
Right.
And so those children start screaming in ways that look like grown adults throwing tantrums.
Right.
When really there's nurturing that needs to happen and there's connection that needs to be made and addressed. And so I give that space, we give that space. And it's not just me being the leader in that space. I get to put my stuff on the table too. I get to say where I am and throw a tantrum in that space and talk about what's going on with me and my daughter, or relationships that I'm in, or the business going left when it should be going right. So it's a safe space. And if it meant for me to have the conversation and create that space so that everybody came in, we just do it. So we meet on Sundays for a couple of hours, and a couple of hours turns into 5. But we don't leave there until whoever needs the support gets the support that they need.
That sounds
So that's a way.
amazing. You mentioned women. What do you think are some of the unique challenges that women face when we think about our mental health?
So I think, we take on so many titles. We're wife, we're mother, we're sister, we're business owner, we're leaders, executive leaders, or whatever that is, church mother, whatever that looks like. And we have all these titles, but I think our biggest challenge is that we don't embrace how powerful, how amazing, how resilient, how resourceful we are, how multi-talented we are. We focus on all the negative and not on all the positive things that we are. The fact that many of us made it through the pandemic is a thing to celebrate. We don't even talk about that. That we survived with children in the house, running, and you had to do school and all these things. I mean, we don't talk about that. I don't think we give enough credit. I think that's a mental health challenge that we need to address.
Right.
How do you affirm people when most of the programming has been what we are not as opposed to what we really are and how amazing we are? And I had to look at myself and say the same thing.
Right.
Why beating yourself up so much when you are so freaking successful? I mean, sometimes when people read off all the accolades, I'm like, really me? But many of us suffer from imposter syndrome. Like, is that really me, or is that just what you're saying to me? And so that's some of what I think as women, we need to just really give ourselves applause.
Right.
And affirm each other more. And I think for a lot of women, that's a challenge because they don't even know what that feels like.
Ooh, that's so true. And you said something that made me think about coming out of the pandemic and the narrative around women. And I'm going to say, just because this is what comes up in my social media feed more, the narrative around Black women. You get so many of these bro podcasts that, a lot of it's just clickbait, and so you're only seeing, a portion of it.
Right.
But some of them, even if it triggers something, and even if you just go to the comments, you really start to see what the narrative is out here about Black women. And like you said, we were going through the pandemic. Many were homeschooling their kids at home, either running companies, working full-time on their own Zooms, or for those that were maybe first responders, they're dropping their kids off in emergency care, going and working 14-hour shifts, taking in people who are very sick, very ill. You got kids at home that normally eat breakfast and lunch in school, and now your bills are going up, and you're managing all of this, and we come out of the pandemic, what we think is okay, like, all right, my family's intact, I came out of it, and then you start scrolling your feed, and now you see this overwhelming narrative coming from mostly Black men about how we're not we're not doing it. We're not doing enough. We're not doing them right. I think that the core of that is the mental health struggle in the Black community.
I agree.
And a lot of unresolved hurt.
Agree.
But then also people are finding their voice. So there's this kind of scary crossroad between, okay, you're finding your voice. And I believe that every person, male, female, whatever, should be able to speak their truth, whatever their truth is. Mm-hmm. But how do we begin to heal our communities? You have a background in public health, right? Yeah. The pandemic was a public health crisis. Yeah. So I'm sure it was very, very interesting for you to watch it. That now you're an entrepreneur and you're doing the certification for the businesses, but the field that you came out of is really going through it. How do we create a peace and a crossroad now within our community that says, hey, you're not perfect, I'm not perfect, but we all want the same thing? How do you address that, in your opinion, one, I guess, through public health, but then also just, as a person, as a human, as a Black woman?
I think, all of us have to do our part.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do my part with my clients. I can do part with the women that I work with who know me,
mm-hmm.
Who are in mastermind with me, and who I get to touch every day. I think, many of us are so addicted to social media, and I think part of it is because we want to be sensationalized in some way. So if it wasn't a TV, now we're on social media.
Right.
And a lot of times we're bored. Or it's also an escape. Point. I don't want to face what's going on in my house. I don't want to address me, because the hardest thing you can do is work on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I sit and scroll through social media, that's one less thing I have to do in working on myself. Many of us are not equipped at the moment to face the things that we don't want to face. And there's nobody encouraging them to reach out and get the support that they need. I think if we could get people to a place where they can find their voice again, not in bashing someone on social media or challenging someone because we have a difference of opinion, but focusing on where they are, what they should be doing or want to do, and how we can support them to get there, that will change everything. I think social media gives people a place to have courage for the things they wouldn't say out loud if you were standing in front of them. It also doesn't put them in a position to have to know a person intimately, or at least get to know them one-on-one, because it's just a screen. Mm-hmm. So they feel like they can say whatever they want. But a lot of this is coming from a place of their own hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we get to a place, and I saw yesterday with a Surgeon General's on talking about we need to put some type of warning on these social media platforms about what it's doing to our kids.
Amen.
Because I have a 22-year-old who's addicted to, she doesn't even look at TV. She looks at social media for her things. She thinks TikTok is like the news.
Right. Right.
So how do we change that? I think we can bring balance to
mm-hmm.
it. And I think, at some point we have to have conversations. We bring phones to the table. And nobody's talking to each other. I watch how people go out to dinner and they won't dialogue with each other, but they'll look at their phone if somebody sends them a message.
Right.
Where did that get lost?
Right.
And how do we bring that back? And I think it can come back if we just, whether it's one household at a time, start having the conversations. And some of it is just, how was your day? Do you know how often we take for granted and never ask a person who we live with, how was your day? How are you feeling today?
Mm-hmm.
You're in a bad mood? You're having a great time? You tell me what good happened today? Like, we don't even have those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I did, because again, I'll out myself, is I got my daughter a life coach. But luckily, one of my girlfriends who's in the mastermind is a psychologist. So let me tell you, we have called on them to really support us and hear us, because a lot of times we were talking, but we couldn't hear each other.
Right.
And so we needed a mediator. And I'm the first to say, I'm a lot of things, but sometimes I'm not always the best person that my daughter can talk to, because we're trying to find the bridge between how I grew up versus how she's growing up. We didn't have social media. They do. I don't understand that language and all of that they're doing and how they see life. So it can be a good in that they see life so different from us. And I embrace it, because they bring ideas that we didn't think about. They want to do things in half the time that we do it. And I am all for that. But there's some things that I cannot necessarily understand. The fact that they see someone on social media as an authority, when really some of what they're doing is damaging some of our communities even more than what they are.
Right.
Just by words.
Right.
And what if that's not true? So, we have to have the conversation. It's important that we have people in our space that can just we have to have these conversations. And I don't know where we got lost with not talking to each other. We'll send a text to tell somebody
in the same room.
Right. To tell somebody off, to share something that happened, as opposed to just having the conversation. There's something about connection and opening up the heart again that has to happen. And even addressing, for many of us, things that happened in our childhood, because a lot of us are acting out what happened to us years ago, and it's a trigger and we don't even realize it. And so what I say to people is we all have blind spots. And so we need support because somebody else can see that blind spot because you can't see it.
Right.
And so bring in the support that you need. Now, one of the narratives is, that's why I don't fool with women, because we don't get along. I'm like,
Right.
Stop saying that.
Right.
That's a lie that we keep telling ourselves. And if you tell yourself that lie enough, you'll believe it. And then you'll spread that to somebody else. And it's not true. And so again, I bring women in the space, and I am a loner a lot of times. And I have other women who were loners. Well, we made a decision to go into something together, and then something happened. And what came up was, see, that's why I don't fool with women. I said, we done all of this work. We're not going back to that. So you can choose to go back to that if you want to. But as of today, we've shown you that women can do well together.
Right.
We can support one another, and we don't have to agree with each other. We just have to respect that that's where you are, and it's okay. And we can agree to disagree without it being a crisis or a fight.
Right.
It just needs to be okay.
You said two words that, for me, I think just stand out a lot: connection and respect. I think that our communities need healing, and one of the two ways that I think that we can do that is if we really do focus on genuine connection, not connection through a screen,
Right.
And respecting one another. I often tell my staff, building a healthy organization through kindness and accountability.
That's good.
Be kind to one another. You don't have to agree, but be kind to one another. Don't tear each other down with words. Even if you're not saying it to that person, don't say it to someone else either. And then hold ourselves accountable. Hold yourself accountable first.
Yes.
Then hold your colleague accountable. But kindness and accountability, I think, can go a long way. And I think that's something that we can also apply to our lives, our social media presence. If we be accountable to the words that we say to one another on social media, but just be kind.
Yes.
I don't think we need to get rid of it. I do think that we need to use it for better good, for healing, for praising one another. If we're going to hide behind a screen or, texting or whatever, and say whatever we have to say to get our point across, to disagree, can we also do it to agree?
Yeah.
And I do see a lot of that. So, Bible says a wheat and tear grow together, and so it does in all aspects. If you had one thing that you wanted the audience to take away in terms of life, business, whatever, tell the audience what you want them to know.
So there's a saying that I love Louise Hay. She's an author who was the owner of Hay House Publishing. And there's something that she would always say when things were just crazy. And what she would say, and which I say to myself every day, is all is well. Everything is working out for our highest and greatest good. And out of this experience, only good will come. And I am safe. And if you have a lot going on at the time, you say it all day long if you have to. And then, or you can write it down, whatever works for you. The other thing I would suggest is that you write in your journal, whether it's at night before you go to bed or when you get up in the morning, is to write in your journal 10 things that you're grateful for. I don't care if it's the roof over your head, the food that you ate that day, or just that you had a phone call with a friend. But 10 things, because the way you go to bed and the way you wake up and start your day will impact everything. And so if it was a suggestion, I would say use that quote and use that particular tool as a way. And if you want to do mastermind, do that too.
Thank you. I love that. Also tell the audience where they can find you on social media.
So the audience can find me at Lane Consulting LLC on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. I'm also on YouTube, but I don't have my own personal channel yet, but I'm working on that. And my website is laneconsultingllc.com. No www, but laneconsultingllc.com.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for gracing the chair, Strong Place, and just sharing your perspective. I really enjoyed our conversation. So many great things that you said just about, connection and respect, and I really appreciate you being here.
And thank you for what you're doing in the mental health arena. It's very needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm Io Johnson, Executive Director of Mental Health America of Central Carolinas, and you have been watching another episode of Strong Place. Until next time, thanks for joining us.